What if I told you that you could understand the entire last decade in tech, every huge shift, every new obsession, not by looking at gadgets or stock prices, but just by reading a few presentation titles? I know, it sounds kind of crazy, but we're about to see how a handful of phrases can tell one of the biggest stories of our time. Yeah, I get it. It sounds pretty out there. How can a few words possibly capture the massive forces that have totally reshaped our world? Well, it turns out, if you're looking at the right list of titles, it's like discovering a secret roadmap that charts the entire industry's journey. And that roadmap comes from this guy, renowned tech analyst Benedict Evans. Twice a year, he puts together this enormous presentation about the state of technology. And believe me, when he speaks, the whole industry pretty much stops what it's doing to listen. And just look at who's in the audience. We're talking about the biggest names on the planet. Alphabet, which is Google, Amazon, Verizon. These aren't just casual talks. They're basically strategic briefings for the very companies building our future. And that's what makes their titles so revealing. Okay, so let's start our story back in the early 2010s. This was an era defined by one single, absolutely unstoppable force. You could call it the reign of mobile. Just look at this timeline. In 2013, the title of his big presentation was "Mobile is Eating the World." 2 years later, in 2015, same thing. And in 2016, you guessed it. For years, the most important story in tech didn't change at all. This wasn't just a trend, it was the trend. It was everything. And that phrase, eating the world, it meant so much more than just, a lot of people have phones now. No. It meant the smartphone had become the new center of gravity for the entire internet. It was the new foundation, and everything from shopping to media to banking was being rebuilt from the ground up to live on it. But what happens after technology is done eating the world? Well, that brings us to our next chapter, this fascinating era of transition. The whole industry was kind of looking around, asking itself, all right, so what's next? And all of a sudden, the titles get complicated. We go from years of the exact same simple title to stuff like The End of the Beginning and The New Gatekeepers. You can feel the shift, right? This wasn't certainty anymore. This was the industry searching, trying to figure out where to go next. The solid ground was gone. So this whole search party sort of ends with this idea of the new gatekeepers, the new powers in tech. But that just tees up an even bigger question, doesn't it? What could possibly come along that would be powerful enough to challenge them? And that brings us right up to today, to the age of AI. And here's where it gets really interesting, because this new era has a very familiar sound to it. And there it is, the big moment. Look at this. On the left, 2016, mobile is eating the world. And on the right, 2024, AI eats the world. I mean, the language is almost identical. The torch has officially been passed. Does this pattern look familiar? It should. It's the exact same thing that happened before. In 2023, it was AI and everything else. Just 1 year later, AI isn't just part of the story anymore. It is the story. AI eats the world. It's happening all over again. And yep, the meaning is exactly the same too. AI isn't just some cool feature you add to your app. It's the new bedrock, the new electricity. It's the base layer that everything else is now going to be built on top of. So let's just zoom out for a second. We've talked about mobile, we've talked about AI, but what's the real takeaway here? What we've stumbled upon is a clear, repeatable pattern for how these massive tech waves actually work. You can think of it as the cycle of dominance. First, one massive trend comes along and just eats the world. Then, as it matures, things get a little messy, a little complicated, and the industry starts searching. And finally, out of that search, a new foundational trend shows up, and the whole cycle kicks off all over again. Which brings us to one last huge question. We've seen this cycle play out perfectly with mobile, and now we're watching it happen in real time with AI. We get the pattern. So the big question for all of us is, what comes after AI? What will be the next thing to eat the world?